We're going to practice a few songs for next week. So what you hear tonight, you will also hear next week. There's some new stuff. So we can open up our hymnals. We'll start with Stand Up for Jesus, number 730. If anybody's interested in following along. Not very many of you are, but that's okay. 730. Doing verses 1, 3, and 4. Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his armor shall he lead, till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed. Stand up for Jesus, stand in his strength alone. Thy arm of flesh will fail you, ye dare not trust your own. Put on the gospel armor, each piece put on with prayer. Where duty calls or danger, be never wanting there. Stand up for Jesus, the strife will not be long. This day the noise of battle, the next the victor's song. To him who overcometh, a crown of life shall be. He with the King of glory shall reign eternally. That'll work. Did you guys like that one? All right, well, we're going to do that again. No. Well, learn it and like it. You get to stand up for Jesus and then sit down. And then stand up for Jesus and then sit down. Yes, that's true. All right, let's see here. We'll do an easy one right now. Majesty. Okay. Number 10. I don't know if anybody needs a book for that one. Majesty, worship his majesty. Unto Jesus be all glory, honor, and praise. Majesty, kingdom, authority, flow from his throne unto his own, his anthem raise. So exalt, lift up on high the name of Jesus. Magnify, come glorify Christ Jesus the King. Majesty, worship his majesty. Jesus who died, now glorified, King of all kings. Like that one? All right, like that one. All right, 7:45. We're going to do Rejoice in the Lord Always. This one's new to me too, so. Not to Bob, he's heard them all. Just strumming along, baby. Just strumming. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice. I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice. I say rejoice. Okay. Now this song goes kind of like a row, row, row your boat, I understand. All right, so, and it goes faster? Is that true? It's faster? All right, so who do we got here? Men and women. We got men and women here. Can you believe it? So I would like the women to start off, okay, with Rejoice in the Lord Always, and just keep singing through 2 verses, okay? Now, boys to men. See the Roman numeral 3? See the Roman numeral 3 on the 3rd line? When it gets there where it says, rejoice, we're going to start from the beginning there. Okay? All right. Ladies, begin, please.
Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice.
All right, boys. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice. Again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. What was that?
Sorry, I lost my place.
Like she's trying to stop me. You can't stop me. You guys get 2 full verses. Guys get 2 full verses. That again. 6:53. Whiter than snow.
Lord Jesus,
I long to be perfectly whole. I want you forever to live in my soul. Break down every idol, cast out every foe. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. 2. Lord Jesus, look down from your throne in the skies and help me to make a complete sacrifice. I give up myself and whatever I know. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Verse 4. Lord Jesus, before you I patiently wait. Come now and within me a new heart create. To those who have sought you, to you never say no. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. It's a pretty song. All right, now last song, we will do Change My Heart, O God. What did I say that was?
6:54.
6:54.
Turn the page.
Turn the page, Doug. And, wow, this goes 2 pages long. Just going to do 1 verse. Okay?
Change
my heart, O God. Make it ever true. Change my heart, O God. May I be like you. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me, this is what what I pray. Change my heart, O God.
Change my heart, oh God.
Make it ever true.
Make it ever true.
Change my heart, O God.
Change my heart, oh God.
May I be like you. Thank you, everybody. Now, next week when we have service, everybody's got to know all these songs, right, kids? We're going to get the loud kiddies in the good way next week, right? All right, thanks, everyone.
All right. Good evening. All right, Forte, you're loud and out. Out loud. It's interesting, we're singing Whiter Than Snow, and Benjamin turns to me and he says, like Seamus. So if you watch wrestling, you'll know. And if you don't, well, you're actually better off. And actually the last song we sang there, Make Me Like You, actually kind of works out for where we're going this evening. So we're going to be in Matthew chapter 9 tonight. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to find your way there. Matthew chapter 9, I'd say split it in the middle and had it right, but that may not be descriptive enough. So 513 if you're in one of the blue pew Bibles. Whoa, T found it fast. Yeah. There you go. So we've been talking about, on Sunday evenings, we've been talking about this idea of focus. We started off a couple of weeks ago, and we said, as a church, what should our focus be? I will fight till I get the right height, sorry. What should our focus be as a church? And the way we talked about it, we framed the discussion is, are we to be insider focused, kind of worried about ourselves and not really worried about anybody else? And I think we all pretty much agreed that was, no, that's kind of a non-starter for us. We're just not interested in being just us four. We really want to get to know people around us. And so we land in kind of really between two positions. One in the middle is we want to be outsider aware. Like we want our community to come to us and to join with us, and we want to be aware in worship that they're there. We're going to bring them along in conversation. It's our desire, my expressed desire at all times, to be understandable. And so if I start some highfalutin stuff and you just don't get it, feel free to say, Pastor Doug, we don't get it. So, bring it back to earth. We live here. Can you bring it back down here? So we want to be outsider aware. But as a church, as a whole, we want to be more outsider focused. Our goal is really to reach new folks, let them know that God loves them, that Jesus died for them, bring them in, and make them be a part of us. And so that was kind of the first week. Last week, we wrestled through the question, and it was a long wrestling match. And so you can go back and relive it. It was, I don't know, we come in at like an hour 20 last week, Uncle. Last week was brutal. It was good, but we had to go and we had to wrestle. And we had some conversation on if our church closed, would anybody in our community even notice? And really, I sensed in our conversation and in what we talked about and what has happened in the week since that you agreed that they may not notice, and you are about as comfortable with that answer as I am, which is to say expressly uncomfortable. I don't like that idea. When people say, "Oh, is that place still open?" which has actually happened to me, people will be here on a weekday, because during the week there's not a lot of cars here because I'm long-winded, but that's pushing it. So there's really not a lot going on a weekday. People stop by. Oh, are you guys still in business? You're still open? Yeah, you have to come during business hours, which is pretty much Sunday morning. But yeah, we're still here. But the fact that it's even a question in their mind is unsettling to me. That people would drive by our building, and if the sign didn't change for 3 weeks, they wouldn't know that we hadn't closed the last two, kind of a deal. So I'm glad that Paul changed the sign this morning. What did it say? Something about a faith lift? Anybody see that? I tried to catch it in the rearview mirror as we drove the wrong way because I live there, so it's on the wrong side for me. So I have to actually walk around to see it, so you can tell I'm lazy. And so that's what we did last week. We wrestled with that question. That was the question we wrestled with. Would our community know? Would our community even know or care if we closed up shop? And we don't like what the answer might be there. And so we're, a lot of us are more sensitive. We're more aware. We need to invite people. We need to let people know. We're a great kept secret. I think we have a great church, best kept secret this end of town. And we don't want to be a secret. We want to get it out there, let everybody know we're here, that, we want to love them, that we're not that weird. We're a little weird, but everybody's a little weird. So, it's not that bad. We're approachable people. And so tonight, kind of following with that, Matthew chapter 9, one of the problems that every church faces and that all Christians face, if you've been walking with the Lord for a while, you've been a Christian for a while, life gets cluttered. You ever notice when you move into a place for the first time, you move into a house, you move into a new apartment, whatever it is, it's clean. Once you finally get all the boxes unpacked, everything's organized, you know where everything is. Now, I understand some of you live that way. I have 6 kids. Yeah, no. I have whole rooms I can't even get into. But anyway, everything, but when you move in, everything's neat, everything's clean, everything's organized. But if you've lived there for a while, things become, a little less clean, and you go shopping, and suddenly you've got more stuff, and then you run out of flat surfaces, and so you've stuff stacked on stuff. Nobody does this, do they? And after a while, things begin to get a little cluttered, and things get a little less organized, and there's that cobweb in the corner. I need to get to that, but that spider's not hurting anybody, and I'm not over there much, so I'll just let that go. And so things get a little less clean, a little less organized, a little more cluttery. And our Christian walk is like that. When we start off, everything's clean, it's raw, it's all about Jesus. And after a while, it becomes about religion, which is almost antithetical to Jesus. He didn't like religion. In fact, he pretty much hated religion, and religion hated him. It was religious people that killed him, after all. But we become this almost religious thing that really wasn't what Jesus had in mind. And we tend to clutter it up. And then when we start thinking about outreach, what we begin to think about is you need to go into your community, you need to go into your circle of influence, and you need to tell people about Jesus. You need to win them to the Lord, and once they become Christians, then you can bring them to church. And church, you get people, and I'm not saying this is what we espouse, but you get people who say, church is a place for Christians. And in the process, we clutter it up with a bunch of rules and a bunch of expectations, and just instead of being really pure and clean and organized, it becomes something that's very cluttery, something that's disorganized, and suddenly you've got to know about Adam and Eve and the apostles and the epistles, and an epistle is the wife of an apostle, right? Some of you are looking at me like, I'm not sure.
That's the right
an apostle is like, somebody who was sent, and one of the 12 disciples, and an epistle is actually a letter. I don't know why we call them epistles instead of letters, because they're just letters. But anyway, and so no, they couldn't be buried. But you have, and we clutter up life with all of this stuff. And Jesus was an immensely simple person. There was depth, and I don't want to say that he wasn't deep, and certainly wasn't nuanced, any of those things. But Jesus spent his entire life trying to take the complicated and make it simple. The religious leaders in Jesus' day took what was simple and tried to make it complex, because therein lies their job security. If I can confuse you, then you think you need me around and you keep paying me. However, if you get to the point where you think you know it all, suddenly I become very expendable. And so the religious leaders in Jesus' day understood this principle, and so they would take the law, they would take the simple things that God had given them, and they would make it complex, because complexity, one, it bred control, which religious people often like control, and it bred job security, and religious people, like all people, love job security, right? Because anybody want to not have job security? No. And so this is what they did. And of course, they didn't couch it in those terms. They couched it in very religious terms, but that's bottom line. That's what they were doing. Jesus walks in, and to some, he looked like, this kind of hippie peasant walking around Jerusalem. We get that. It's really not his deal, but that's kind of the motif he might have looked like he was rocking. He comes in, and he just talks to people where they are, how they are. He starts talking about the birds, and he starts talking about farming, and he starts talking about fishing, and he starts talking about being a shepherd, and everybody that's around there is either a farmer or a fisher or a shepherd, and they're like, dude, we get that. Like, what happened to all the highfalutin, religious language? And he's like, no, we don't. we know God invented language, but some of those words we don't think he made up. I think people made that up. And so Jesus, everything about Jesus was far simpler than the religious leaders. And at every turn, he kind of undermined their authority, undercut their power base, because he was saying, it's really not that complicated. Here's what God said, here's what God meant, which was pretty much what he said. And it became very simple, and suddenly, like, people all around were like, wow, we don't need these guys. We got this guy, and two, we got that guy, and we're good. And so when it comes to this area, though, of inviting people to church, of reaching out into our community, reaching out into our circles of influence, the question often comes up in our own minds, how do we do that? How do we start? I heard a really great message this week about leading someone to Christ from John 3:16. I am totally going to steal it and preach it sometime. Not tonight, though. It was just great. I'm like, and I've heard it before, but suddenly this week it really resonated with me. But what we find here is something very simple. And when it comes to coming into church, you got to understand, for most people, coming outside in is scary. How many of you have ever visited a church before? Like, for the first time, do you remember that process? And you walk in, and like, you don't even know where the bathrooms are, and so you hope you don't have an emergency. And you don't know, like, when do you stand up, when do you sit down? You don't quite know. The music it's there, and now I grew up in church. I mean, my dad got saved when I was 6 years old. And so I have grown up in church. I won't tell you how old I am now. It's really not that bad. I'm 41. Okay, so I lied. I will. So for 35 years, though, I've been in church. And so you have to really work hard to hit me with music I haven't heard. But believe it or not, in the course of the couple years, I take 1, 2, sometimes 3, but usually 2 Sundays a year, and I completely go out of church because I love my church, love to worship with my church, but this is also my job. And so in order to actually take a vacation, I have to not come to church. But I still go to church someplace. I still believe in that. And so, we go to different places. I've actually been to a couple places over the years where I go in and I go through the same things. I mean, I'm a professional Christian here, right? Pastor, professional Christian, whatever. And so you go in and you think, oh, you know the drill. I go in I sweating bullets just like you, because I don't know where the bathroom is either, and that's a problem. And I go in, and I don't know quite when to stand and sit unless they really spell it out in the program, and that's why we try to spell it out in ours, because we want people to know. And I go in, I've even been to a few churches that I didn't know the music, which is weird, because, I mean, you got to really get out of the box for me to not know. I listen to a lot of stuff. And so coming into a church for the first time is very scary. And then we tend to complicate it, especially like if you're inviting a friend, you try to like prep them ahead of time. Oh, isn't that a disaster in the making? Because you're like, okay, now understand this about my church and understand that. And before you're done telling them what to expect, they're not coming. They're like, no. The bathroom is here, but it's kind of like walking through a corn maze to find it. And then there's that person, and then there's those rowdy kids, those preachers' kids especially, and then there's those expectations, and most churches have like an unspoken dress code. We at least are honest about our dress code, right? Everybody tells, that's the one thing I always promote, our dress code. Our dress code is very simple. Please wear clothes. So we cover that base. But you go through all these things, but bringing somebody in for the first time can be very scary. And so we tend to overcomplicate it. And coming to Jesus and coming to be a Christian can be kind of a scary process. And we tend to complicate it. Jesus understood it was kind of a scary process, and so he simplified it, which makes so much sense. We don't get there, but it makes so much sense. Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. I really want to focus here. We'll move on to a couple verses that follow too. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting in the tax office, and he said to him, "Follow me." So he arose and followed him. Now, when you see, I know it's right, it's really complex. It's really complex, isn't it? Now, the Matthew that is being talked about here is the dude who wrote the book. Okay, so when you see you're in the Gospel of Matthew, in the book of Matthew, and he's talking about Matthew, he's like talking about himself. This is his conversion experience. This is Matthew coming to Christ. And so Jesus is walking by, and there's a lot that goes on before it, but it really it's not germane to this particular story. And so Jesus walks by, and he goes, "Hey, Matt, follow me." And And there's so many questions about why people did this, but Matthew stood up and he followed Jesus. Weird. Because honestly, if like some homeless guy walked by me and said, hey, follow me, I'm not going to go to my boss and go, I'm out of here. And just go. And Matthew may have just like called in sick for the afternoon, whatever, we don't know. But Matthew was a tax collector who is popular to every culture, aren't they? How many of you love the IRS? It's just your favorite institution in the United States, right? And if you're talking to a tax collector, you just feel like free to be yourself. Not really. And it was actually worth in Matthew's day, because what the Romans would do for tax collection was they would take somebody who was local. They wanted, that local face of the Roman Empire. And so you get Matthew, who is a Jew, and he is the local manifestation of the Roman Empire. Now, did the Jews in the Roman Empire have a really cozy relationship? Not exactly. Historically, they revolted several times. Several times over the course of several hundred years before Rome finally they just demolished the city, and they're like, fine, you're all out of here. We're done. You're evicted. And they evicted an entire city. And so Rome and Israel did not have a good relationship. And Jews looked on Romans as oppressors. And it should not come as a surprise that the local Jewish manifestation of the Roman Empire was viewed as a traitor. That's how the average Jew looked at the average tax collector. Worse, because Rome would say, here's your names, here's your list of people, here's how much tax you must collect from them. We're not going to pay you. Whatever you happen to get over and above that, that's your salary. Here's some soldiers. So it kind of worked really well for the greedy, because they would get in there and they would say, okay, you owe Rome 100 shekels, but I'm running behind in my mortgage. You owe Rome 300 shekels this month. And if you don't like it, here's my centurion. And they would turn people over and shake them till the money fell out, and let them go and collect the money. And this is how the tax collectors operated, and this was legal. And so you can imagine, if your tax bill tripled because your tax collector was having a bad day, you might dislike him all the more. And this is Matthew. This is who he is. This is what he does. And Jesus walks by his little office there, and he says, hey, Matthew, follow me. And for reasons that we don't really know that well, Matthew said, oh, okay, I got nobody to victimize right this moment. I'll follow you. And he did. And what's interesting to note then is what happens. Because here's the invitation. Now, did he say, Matthew, clean up your act? Matthew, stop stealing? Matthew, return all that money you stole? Matthew, quit being a brute? Matthew, quit being a traitor? Matthew, quit being this evil person that you are? Did he say any of that? What's amazing is he walked up to really one of the most despicable, most despised, certainly, people in all of Israel, and he says, hey, follow me. No prerequisites, no turn over a new leaf, no clean up your act, no get it together, just follow me. There is absolutely nothing that precedes this conversation. Just follow me. Is that a little different than we expect? Because usually in our culture, people think, once I get my act together, I'll go back to church. Once I turn over a new leaf, right now you wouldn't want me to go to church. I'm such a bad person that you wouldn't possibly want me in church. I mean, and that's where our culture is. Some of you have been there. I have been, and so it's like, I'm not good enough to go to church. I need to get better and be better. And then once I'm, in a little bit better shape, I'll go and I'll do the God thing and I'll go to church. That's about as smart as saying, I'm really sick. I'm too sick to go to the hospital. Once I get better, I'll go. It's the same thing, because we're a hospital for people's spiritual problems. And so if you've got a problem, it's all spiritual problem, and you say, well, I need to get better before I come. Well, that's like saying, I have poison ivy, and once it's cured, I'll go see my doc about it. But that's what we think. And so Jesus here, nothing precedes it, just says, Matthew, follow me. It's completely backwards to what we would normally do. We normally think there's prerequisites, whether you're outside the church or inside the church. There's usually some expectation. Cover up that ink, do something. Whatever. Fit in a little bit better, and then come. And Jesus walked up to the singularly most non-fitting in person in the empire, in the city, certainly, and said, "Come, just follow me." He didn't say, believe I'm Messiah. Didn't say, believe I'm the Son of God. He didn't say, obey all my commands. He just said, hey, Matthew, follow me. Pretty simple, wouldn't you think? And what's interesting to note as you keep reading is where he went. In verse 10, now it happened as Jesus sat at the table in the house. What house? Keep reading. That behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. Here's a newsflash. Jesus didn't own a home, like ever at all. What house do you think they were at? No, not the church. There was a bunch of tax collectors and sinners there. Who do most tax collectors have as friends? Tax collectors, because they're kind of an outcast in society. And so here's Matthew. Jesus said, follow me, Matt. I'm going to your house. You might want to join me. And so Jesus invited himself over for dinner. Matthew's like, okay, call lunch. I mean, he doesn't have a cell phone. He can't call ahead to staff saying, hey, we got a VIP coming in, set it up. And so Jesus said, follow me. And Matthew says, sure, where are we going? He goes, your house. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to follow you now. And so they're there, and they're throwing this big meal because Jesus is there. And there's, Matthew's like, I got an important guest. I need to, hey, and he sends out runners, and he invites all the people he knows. But all the people he knows are tax collectors. And all the people he knows are in this other category of people just called sinners. What is a sinner? I don't know. But it was anybody that was outcast in Jewish society, because outcasts kind of hang together. And he says, look, guys, I got a really important guest. I need some people here. Can you come over for free lunch? And, tax collectors in their nature are like, free? Yeah, we're there. Not to categorize them or anything. And the sinner's like, hey, Matt's having a party. Let's go hang. And so this is what happens. Jesus is there. The disciples are there. It's not quite the painting that Da Vinci envisioned. I get that. But, Jesus is there. The tax collectors are there. The disciples are there. But they're not the only ones there. Look at verse 11. And when the Pharisees saw it, now the Pharisees were the religious leaders of Israel. When the Pharisees saw it, now they were invited. They just showed up. The Pharisees, through a lot of Jesus' ministry, the Pharisees were like the paparazzi. They just followed Jesus all over the place to torment him. And so Jesus was going to a party, so guess what, boys? We're going to a party. Don't talk to anyone, and don't touch anything that you didn't bring in with you, because it's tax collectors and it's sinners, and we know this is a disaster in the making. But the Pharisees are there. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? Jesus, a good Jewish boy, is eating with these traitors and these tax collectors and these sinners, and what kind of a religious leader are you that would do that? Of course, you notice they didn't ask Jesus, they asked his disciples. Because they always had a quick and ready answer now, didn't they? When Jesus heard that, he heard what was going on. He said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. See, the metaphor holds. Even Jesus used it. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. And so as we look at this process that's going on here, very simple, Jesus walks by a sinner and he says, hey, follow me. Would you come with me? Now, yes, I'm going to your house, but would you come with me? And immediately, Matthew begins to follow Jesus and has a party. And Matthew invites the only people he knew to come to this party to meet who? Jesus. Matthew immediately does outreach. Is he a Christian? No. Is he a believer? No. Does he know all the rules? Does he obey everything Jesus told him? Jesus hadn't told him nothing yet. He said, follow me. And Matthew immediately begins reaching out to people. You got to meet this guy. Right? So you have a call to follow, followed by outreach. And Jesus immediately then said in verse 12 and 13, those who are well don't need a physician, but those who are sick, they need a physician. He said, I have come because these people need me. They need to know me. They need me to heal them. Some of them physically, but most of them spiritually. And Jesus immediately begins evangelism. How cool is that? Honestly, you read stories like this, you're like, wow, God, Jesus was so cool. Because we messed this up really bad. He just said follow. No rules, no prerequisites, no nothing. He just said, follow me. He didn't even tell him what he was going to do afterwards. Simple? Yeah. And we've made the statement before that if every person that you know and are in a relationship with is a Christian, you have zero opportunities to evangelize. Because most evangelism, most of the opportunities that you're going to have to invite someone to meet Jesus, to follow with you, to follow Jesus, usually you can only make that invitation to somebody who's not. Like if you said, hey, Pastor Doug, you want to follow Jesus? I'm like, well, yeah. You know, you going to go to church today? Yeah. So it's really hard, if you're going to ask me, And the same thing, if I called you up, hey, Bob, on a Saturday night, I'm going to church tomorrow at 11. You want to come with me? Bob would be like, I'm in the band. Yeah, I'll be there. You can see where this breaks down very quickly. If I don't know anybody outside of you folks, and as lovely as you are, and as much as I love you, and I do, I can't invite you to church. You're already here. I can't invite you to follow Jesus with me because you already are. And so for me to even kind of jump into this story, I need to know somebody who doesn't follow Jesus already, who might be a traitor or a sinner or an outcast. And I need to give them a very simple invitation. Hey, come with me. You don't have to believe like I believe. It's fine. You don't have to like God. You don't have to believe in God. You don't even have to believe He exists. That's fine. Totally cool with that. No prerequisites. Just, hey, would you show up with me? And then we could be like Jesus. Jesus like fed people to keep them hanging around. If you come to church with me, I'll take you over to like the new China Super Buffet, and we'll pig out afterwards. On me. On my, $5.50. It's okay to bribe people. It's good. The invitation is real simple. Hey, would you come with me? Would you follow me? And that's the invitation that we're seeking to make. You find somebody who isn't currently following Jesus, and you say, hey, want to come with me? I'm following Jesus. Where to? I don't know. We're just going. But I'm not good at it. You don't have to be. We're going. But I don't know. No, you don't have to. We're going. But the rules, no. The expectation, no. There are none of those things. We're just following. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in the complexity of religion and in trying to get everything right, and there's something to be said for that, granted, that we miss out on the very simple call of Jesus, which is, follow me. It's simple. And so as we think about our focus, reaching out into our community, is it hard? Yeah, because there's a level of risk, because people might reject you, but probably they're not going to cut off your head, so it's probably okay. Now, other parts of the world, it's more scary because they might. But here, worst case you're going to get is, no, you freak. Okay, well, that's really not that bad, sticks and stones and all that stuff. And so, follow me. And just, hang with me. Come meet Jesus. It's, when you begin to think about it, it's really not that bad. And yet we struggle with it. And I understand the struggle. I struggle with you. But when you think about it, it's just simple, isn't it? It's just simple. And so our focus isn't to be cluttered or to be confused or to be confusing. Hopefully not confused, although I'm sure we get there. It's to be very simple. Hey, follow me. I'm nobody. I'm not perfect. No expectations, no rules. Wear clothes. Let's go. Pretty simple. That's our focus. Now, next week, Pastor Carl will be preaching next week, but the week after, we'll continue this idea. It's kind of a three-part mini-series in the middle of this bigger thing. The next step after follow me. Because, Jesus is great. He accepts you exactly as you are, but He doesn't leave you that way. He has zero expectations for you to join Him. But if you're going to hang around a while, He might want you to grow. He might want you to flourish. And so with that comes some stuff that goes with it. But it's, again, simple, and we complicate it, and He doesn't want us to. So there's that. As we focus on our community, keep it simple. Hey, follow me. No expectations. Can we do that? All right. Hope so. I had prayer requests when I came down here. Let's see. Yep. All right. If you are joining us online this evening, prayer requests went out right about the stroke of 6 o'clock. I got the email out. And so you should have them in your inbox. Check your email. And we're going to sign off in a minute. We're going to take a couple prayer requests, see if we have any extras. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time praying. Typically about this time, These are prayer requests. If you, on our connection card in our program, there's an opportunity for you to write your prayer requests, and so those then make it onto our prayer list. So anything that you want to add as a prayer request that we may pray for that you didn't get on your connection cards this morning, or if you weren't here this morning that you didn't get on because you weren't here. Anything that we want to add that we can pray for you about. You still have the world as your audience, so, or at least the colleges.
At least.
Maybe the Mickles. Anything to add? Last call? No? Okay. All right, if you are joining us online, thank you. Have a good night. God bless. We're going to take some time out to pray.